These Russians need to know what phrasal verbs are. Why? I didn't even know what he was talking about. He says, because native English speakers say them, but we don't know we're saying them. Why? Because we're not taught what phrasal verbs are. Why? Because we're not tested. Why? Because it's assumed that we stand and are born on U.S. soil or Australian soil or Canadian soil, we just by osmosis know what phrasal verbs are and can use them. Not so. We learn them like you will learn them, but we learn them 16 hours a day, 365 days a year, 18, 20, 25 years of that. So you cannot compete with us. You cannot understand us fast enough to understand us. And we use them, as one philologist says, up to 83% of the time. So I say 50 to 75% of the time, just to be generous. Well, I was teaching English, so I was kind of, he asked me what the phrasal verb was. I just sat there like, phrasal, verb, phrasal, verb, verb, phrasal. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was just like sitting stupid in front of another American talking about English. I thought this would be easy. I never failed an interview with the first question. So I said, I got to know what these things are. And I got better and better at it. Anybody remember the crash of 2008? Anybody remember? That was a bad, September, October, November. During that time, I was teaching the only C2 level, the only advanced English person that was Russian. Her name was Anastasia. I don't want to say her last name. She was a top HR person at Chevron. C2 level English. That's like step below Shakespeare. And she's talking to people around the world because she works for Chevron and welcoming them to Chevron and then saying goodbye to them. So she doesn't do the everyday stuff, she does the big stuff because she's a big HR person. So she hired, I was working with English First, and she called English First and says, I need somebody to help me with phrasal verbs. Well, this person gives tests to their teachers. Imagine that, a student giving tests to the teacher. So they came to me because they knew I was kind of specializing. This is my niche, my specialty. And they said, George, this person needs help with the phrasal verbs. And I said, why? She's C2 level. She said, well, I don't know, she needs help. And they said, well, she gives a test. I was like, oh, great, fantastic. So luckily she used the Cutting Edge book, advanced book. And in that, in the back, there's a pamphlet. It's a preview of the 10 units. And it has, of the 10 units, 15 phrasal verbs, 15 idioms, and 15 fragments. And there are phrasal verbs all throughout the whole thing. So they don't want to scare people because not every unit just has 15 phrasals, 15 idioms, and 15 fragments. So I took this booklet and put into an Excel spreadsheet because, and it had small type. Somewhere typing this in because as a teacher you want to stay at least one page ahead of the students so they think you know something. And somewhere in the middle, I started to spontaneously recognize phrasal verbs I didn't even know around me, listening, reading, everywhere. So I started to, like some people read music, you read words, good musicians read music. I started reading phrasal verbs. I said, okay, it's a native English thing, right? It's native English. No. She started to do it too after we did like 5 of the 10 units, and unfortunately we didn't continue because it was the end of my second-year contract and they didn't renew it because I had already had more private clients, so I was losing money working with English First. Good company, but they don't pay too much. And so I couldn't continue with her. We've kept in contact, and so C2 level, I mean, anybody have C2 level English here? No. C1? B2? C1? No C1? Okay. Yeah? So it's the thing, but we don't know we're saying this. This is the thing. And we can't help you. It's sort of the elephant and the tail. Native English speakers are the elephant, I am the tail. I kind of tell you where not to walk so the elephant doesn't stop. So this is what we do. I did other things, but I've gradually got to the point because I want to get this a little more interesting, in that we'll play a 24 or 22-minute Friends episode, and I will write down the phrasal verbs, as many as I can, and put a one-word synonym to it. Now, for you as maybe non-native speakers, you're probably less than 10 seconds, somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds, to think of a one-word synonym. if you ask a native English speaker the first time without, and make sure they're not an English teacher, and they don't live here, and they kind of know this stuff, the first time a native English speaker is asked for a one-word synonym, they can't do it. Why? Because, this is kind of my reverse engineering, you have this idea, and then up until World War I, we all spoke kind of everyday English, so I'll call that informal. And then after World War I, we got a lot of people going, or more people going to school, so you had formal. So we have this idea, and we either go back between one-word verbs here or two-word verbs, which actually comes from German, because English came from German and started to become English after 1065, when William the Conqueror from France, and he brought his French and his Latin and beat the Saxons. Saxons referred to Saxony of Germany. Thank you very much. So the people in UK, what was the name in UK? It was Brittany. They were speaking kind of this Dutch, Germanic, Scandinavian thing, Germanic stuff. And then they lost to the French, and that's probably why the British have always hated the French, because without the French beating the Saxons in 1065, the British wouldn't be speaking English. They'd be speaking kind of a Flemish, German thing. So what I do, we native speakers, we use English emotionally. So for formal, we use one-word verbs primarily, mostly. If we're informal, let's sit down, let's go out to eat, let's pick up pizza. So we switch emotionally to here, informally. And it takes a few seconds, it takes a fraction of a second to do this. So what I do is that every time I see a phrasal verb, I tell my client, give me a one-word synonym. And so I hotwire your head so that after a while you have this idea, whatever this idea is, and your head is integrated with informal and formal English so that you can do this instantly. This is sort of my reverse engineering of this. And if you've seen the movie King's Speech, you can imagine an Australian teaching the King of England how to speak English. So I got this over time. This is sort of my representation of what it is. But actually, it really doesn't matter what happens because it works. So how it works is that I'll show you when I play the show, I will probably get most of the phrasal verbs and in real time give you the one-word synonym unless there's two or three in the same sentence, and we can do that. We can do that. We do that a lot of times. And I would like to ask someone to come up and give it a try to see if you can hear phrasal verbs, write them down. If you can do the one-word synonym, because you can do it, but it's going to take you somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds each time, give that a try. Or just do the phrasal verbs. If you get as many phrasal verbs as I do, you might be over half, and I'll pay your fee for the day. But you can try every once in a while to get a one-word synonym. So he is sitting, but he's also leaning back, right? She's leaving, but she's going out the door. So the phrasal verb could be either transitive and have a direct object, or intransitive. It doesn't have a direct object. So interesting, when you really get familiar and get a stronger sense of the English verb, all the other grammar just kind of settles in and becomes much clearer to you. Because every sentence has a noun, it has a verb, everything else is optional. Look at headlines in newspapers. 5 words. Usually there's every other headline of a newspaper, doesn't matter if it's the Financial Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, LA Times, anything. 5 words usually, because I took a journalism class in college. They try to boil down, reduce, the first paragraph, which is funneling from general to specific information, to give you, the reader, in 5 words or less. If it's bigger news, less words, so things disappear like adjectives, adverbs, sometimes verbs. Maybe something, ad could be quits, he quits, or wow, or something. So you can get down to 1 word if everything's war's over, we won, so something like that. But half the time they use phrasal verbs because they're trying to draw you in, to attract you to the story long enough, because you will stop at some point when you have enough information, if it's a story you cover over time, because they want you to see the reclama at the bottom of the ad bottom of the page, because that's what pays for the paper. That's what keeps the newspaper in business. It's not the news. It's not the 15, 20 cents or 50 cents or whatever for the paper. That barely pays for the paper. It's the advertisements. So they want to keep on the page long enough to see the one page, the one reclama per page, maybe two, but at least one that pays for the paper. So this is about it. And so English is kind of a relatively new language. It took about 150 years for it to actually become real English. And the French couldn't even understand the Saxons because they were using phrasal verbs that were from German. So they kind of had this like secret language underneath English that the French couldn't understand. Because William the Conqueror, when he came to Hastings, the Battle of Hastings, and became the King of England, he lost his land back in France from other people. So he was stuck on this island with these stupid Saxon people that were peasants. Well, 1,000 years ago, everybody was a peasant. So that's no unusual thing. So that's what has developed. And there's been this kind of like, they've had wars, the British and the French, but I think the British would like to have not had the French input to be able to create English. But you have to, because about half of French is from English, a third of Russian is from French. So you know a lot of English already that you didn't know. I call it like the French most. And German. You've got like a subway between English and Russian because of German, from very early on, from, Peter the Great maybe, when he brought people over, added, called. So even as I'm saying them, I can choose whether I want to say the phrasal verb or the one-word synonym. If I don't know what you don't know, because there are a number of people here, I don't know what, everybody has a different background of Russian, different background of English. So I would want to defer to the one-word verbs if I don't know how your level of English, even native English speakers. Because if I was from Boston, talking to somebody from Chicago or LA or Houston, slightly different phrasal verbs. So I would want to not use them and have an increase of my understanding by using one-word verbs. Phrasal verbs, it's risky because you don't know what they don't know, and if they don't know, they don't know they don't know. So it just goes, it goes by them, it passes them, it goes by, pass. So what I did, I gave you both. You won't find too many, if any, native speakers giving you both because we're not taught that way. The only people I find that can really take it to understand phrasal verbs and give you the one-word synonym are editors, people that do a lot of essays. And I edit a lot of essays for people passing tests, TOEFL, IELTS, SAT, SSAT for getting into high school. So with that, that's kind of like my history primer for this. And you're brave people for staying with me. Now I'm looking for a brave person to come up here and try this. So, you want to come up?
Write down the phrasal verb, yeah?
Write down, record, very good. So you want to come up? Okay, you're the first. She's seen me like 5 times, so she's actually kind of partly trained to do this. And so you take that speaker. All right, so what we will do, unfortunately I couldn't get the speaker going, but I have this going, and I will turn it on. And we have something from number 2. This is the 10 episodes, 10 years of Friends, and approximately 250 shows because there's 25 per year. So let me get a marker. I got 2, so in case one breaks, you've got a backup. There's somewhere. Here's another backup. So in case these are brand new markers, but in case it dries up, it stops. Right? If I do that 150 times to you, you're going to start to be like me because I'm training your brain to know the phrasal verb and any synonym. Not just the synonym, but any synonym. But how many people will do that to you on the street? You talk about Japanese. Who's going to train you on the street to be better in the language? And by definition. Okay, so we're about ready. Get your marker there. So right here is many, just listen. And I don't know if I even know this episode. I haven't listened to all of them. I did save them, but this is not even from my BK account. When I watched them, I just kind of checked to see that the whole thing loaded. I hadn't seen them all. And I kind of like them because I think it was Chekhov. It said if you have 3 people, you have unlimited possibilities. Was it Chekhov? You have unlimited situations, Chekhov? But you have 3 men, 3 women. So it's like 2 times unlimited. I don't know if that's actually possible. So we're going to play this. You may not hear it too well. I'm sorry. I would have liked to have had it on the screen, but my Bluetooth didn't quite work. I'll put the volume up. Okay, so we're ready to go. And so get ready. Yeah. Well, you listen, and if you hear a phrasal verb, because I'll give you a hint. The second part of a phrasal verb could be at the end of the sentence, or it could be right next to the verb. If it is intransitive and there's no direct object, probably it's right next to the verb. Go up, sit down, turn around. There's no direct object. If there's a direct object, if it's a pronoun, it could be in the middle or behind. So if you just think about what the sentence is, you think is there, first of all, are there two things, is there a verb and a preposition, or a verb and a particle acting as one verb? The other hint, if you hear two prepositions or two particles or any combination of those two, the first one must be part of the verb because there's no noun after it. So those are the two hints. So again, if it's the second part, if there's a direct object, it could be after the preposition or particle or between. Usually if it's between, it's a pronoun because it's been referenced before. John went to pick up her car, or pick her car up. So you reference, usually a pronoun is in the middle. You see, this guy's loving this already. That's okay. It's going to be in the internet, so you can read it again, so you see it again. So even though if you don't participate, you can listen to it and get the gist. So are you ready? Okay, so here we go. If you can't hear it, I'm sorry, we have to hear it. Here we go. Okay, so we have 22 minutes. We're going to try to back. Let me see if I can back this up a bit. Hold a second.
Hey. And you're an engineer. And this from the Crime for Health Department. Are you wearing makeup?
Yes, I am. As of today, I am officially Joey Tribbiani, actor / model.
That's so funny because I was thinking you look more like Joey Tribbiani, man / woman.
What were you modeling for?
Oh, you know those posters for the City Free Clinic?
Oh, wow. So you're going to be one of those healthy guys? You know, the asthma guy's really cute. Oh, he is.
You know which one you're going to make?
No. But here's Lyme disease, so.
Good luck, man. I hope you get it.
Well, you were right. How can they do this to us? Oh, it's Thanksgiving.
Okay, I tell you what. How about if I cook dinner at my place? I'll make it just like Mom.
Will you make the mashed potatoes with the lumps?
You know they're not actually supposed to. I'll work on the lumps. Joey, you're going home, right?
Yeah.
And I assume, Chandler, you're still boycotting all the pilgrim holidays.
Yes, every single one.
Maybe you're going to be with your grandma? Yeah, and her boyfriend. But we're celebrating Thanksgiving in December because he's lunar. So you're free Thursday then? Yeah. Oh, can I come? Rach, are you still thinking you're going to make it to Vail? Absolutely. Shoot. Only $102 to go.
I thought it was $98.50.
Yeah, well, it was, but I broke a cup.
Well, I'm off to Carol's.
Oh, why don't we invite her?
Ooh, because she's my ex-wife and will probably want to bring her lesbian life partner. Hi. Is Carol here?
No, she's at a faculty meeting.
Oh. Well, I just came by to pick up my skull. Well, not mine, but... Yeah, Carol borrowed it for a class, and I have to get it back to the museum.
What's it look like?
Kind of like a big face without skin.
Yes, I'm familiar with the concept. Maybe we can just look for it.
Wow, you guys sure have a lot of books about being a lesbian.
Well, you have to take a course. Otherwise, they don't let you do it.
Hey, you're the turtle. A classic.
Actually, I'm reading it to the baby.
The baby that hasn't been born yet? Wouldn't that mean you're crazy?
Well, you don't think they can hear sounds in there?
You're not serious. I mean, you really talk to it?
Yeah, all the time. I want the baby to know my voice.
Well, that's just. Do you talk about me?
All the time.
Really?
But, we just refer to you as Bobo the sperm guy.
I just like to say I'm totally behind this experiment. In fact, I'd very much like to butter your head.
Hey, Rich. Did you make your money? No, not even close. Forget bail, forget seeing my family, forget shoot. Rich, here's your mail. Thanks, you guys. No. Here's your mail. Thanks. You can just put it on the table. You just open it. Oh my God. Oh, you guys, great. We all chipped in.
We did?
You owe me $20. Thank you so much. Chandler, here you go. You got your traditional holiday feast. We got your tomato soup, your grilled cheese fixin', and your family-sized bag of onions. Wait, Chandler, this is what you're having for Thanksgiving dinner? What is it with you on this holiday?
All right, I'm 9 years old. We just finished this magnificent Thanksgiving dinner. I have, I remember this part vividly, a mouthful of pumpkin pie. And this is the moment my parents choose to tell me we're getting divorced.
Oh my God.
Yes, very difficult to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner when you see it in reverse.
I never saw this in Moms.
Yeah.
Hello? This isn't a yam. Yam comes in the purple can. They don't come in these.
Ross, that's just the wrong way or anything, but back off.
We used to work together. Yeah, at MECC. You're the obsession group, right?
Yes.
I was the Aramis guy.
So she's
Aramis.
Yeah, right.
I gotta tell you, you're the best in the business.
Yeah.
I'm serious, you're amazing. You know when to sprint, you know when to lay back.
You don't know what that means to me.
You smell great tonight. What are you wearing?
to start a new life. Why can't you do it?
Listen, want to go get a drink or something?
Yeah.
Oh, what's wrong?
I just remembered I have to do something.
What?
Wait.
Wait.
Because we are in the real life. We are not in a simulated situation. We are just with huge noise.
So I guess you all saw it.
If you understand only
Saw what? Where'd you laughing. No, I'm not laughing. You're being infectious.
Pronunciation is what?
At another place for Thanksgiving, my entire family thinks I have GD.
One person to
On a very special blessing.
you start understanding.
Looking good. Okay. Cider's mulling. Turkey's turkeying. Yams are yamming. What?
I don't know. It's just not the same without Mom in the kitchen.
Oh, all right, that's it. You know what? Just get out of my way and stop annoying me.
Well, that's closer.
I got the ticket. $5 for now. Shoot.
Must stop shooting. Chandler, will you just come in already? Oh, no, thank you. I prefer to keep a safe distance from all this merriment.
Some good pie.
We all laughed when he did it with the stuffing, but that's not funny.
Hey, Monica, I got a question. I don't see any tater tots.
That's not a question.
My mom always makes some. It's like a tradition. You get a little piece of turkey on your fork, a little cranberry sauce, and a tot. It's bad enough I can't feed my family because of my disease.
All right, fine. Tonight's potatoes will be both mashed, with lumps, and in the form of tots.
All right, I'm off to talk to my unborn child. Okay, Mom never cared.
Okay, all done. What, Phoebe, did you whip the potatoes? Toast needs lumps.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought we could have them whipped and then add some peas and onions.
Why would we do that?
Because then they'd be just like the way my mom used to make it, you know, before she died.
Okay, 3 kinds of potatoes coming out.
Okay, goodbye, you guys. Thanks for everything. Oh, sorry.
The most unbelievable thing has happened. Underdog has gotten away.
The balloon?
No, the actual cartoon character. Of course, it's all over the news. Right before he reached Macy's, he broke free and was spotted flying over Washington Square Park. I'm going to the roof. Who's with me?
I can't. I gotta go.
Come on, an 80-foot inflatable dog loose over the city? How often does that happen?
Almost never.
Got the keys?
Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
20 years.
Okay, here we go. Okay, what am I talking to here? I mean, well, there is one way that seems to offer a certain acoustical advantage, but...
Listen to the phone.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, here goes.
That's not so good.
I can't do this. It's too weird. I feel stupid.
So don't do it. It's fine. You don't have to do it just because Susan does it.
Dog shit all over the park. Yeah, they have to shoot him down. I mean, that was too mean.
Okay. Right about now, turkey should be crispy on the outside, juicy on the inside. Why are we standing here? We're waiting for you to open the door. You have the keys. No, I don't. Yes, you do. When we left, you said, got the keys. No, I didn't. I asked, got the keys? No. You said, got the keys.
Either of you have the keys?
Wait, we have a copy of your key. Don't make me go any faster. Everyone's telling me you gotta pick a major. You gotta pick a major. So, on a dare, I picked paleontology. And you have no idea what I'm saying because, let's face it, you're a fetus. You're just happy you don't have gills anymore.
You don't have to talk to it. You can sing to it if you want to.
Please, I am not singing to your stomach, okay?
How's it going?
Here we go. Everyone with me. Hey, hey. Hey, did you just feel that? Does it open?
No, that was the first. Keep singing, keep singing.
I can't wait to meet you. When you come out, I'll buy you a bagel and then we'll go to the zoo. Hey, Daddy, I'm the one without any breasts.
Oh, this is really great. 5 o'clock, my plane is now fully awake today. Maybe you can take over the flight. There is no such flight. Maybe you can go tomorrow. Tomorrow is not Thanksgiving. I'm going to try to carry you up your hands, maybe halfway. Can you go any faster with that?
Hey, I got one keyhole and about a zillion keys. You do the math.
There's so many keys in there anyway.
Emergency just like this?
Alright, listen, Smirky. If it wasn't for you and your stupid balloon, I would be on a plane watching a woman do this right now. But I'm not. I swear you said you had the keys. No, I didn't. I wouldn't say I had the keys unless I had the keys. I obviously did not have the keys. Oh, okay, alright, that's it. Enough with the keys. No one say keys. Why would I have the keys? Aside from the fact that you said you had them. But I didn't. Well, you should have. Why? Because everything is my responsibility. And then if it's about them making Thanksgiving dinner for everyone, you know, everyone wants a different kind of potato. So I'm making different kinds of potatoes. Does anybody care what kind of potatoes I want? No! You know, just as long as Phoebe gets her peas and onions and Mario gets his done.
We got a lot of phrases of verbs. Well, talk to, that's okay. Talk to is 2 words acting as one. Talk to, like, address, talk to, talking to, address. So you see a lot with phrasal verbs. And because she's soft, my demonstration of this. Are you showing it? You're still showing it? Yeah. Do you see something? Do you see something? You caught a lot of them. Get out of the way, come in already. So you already have them with.
No way.
So those are
I booked
put your head in,
But
pull
she's
your
not the
get your
table.
back out.
for what? 15
Talking
minutes.
to, talking down, take up. It's interesting, some of the take up a course,
There was pick up.
pick up on this one, did you get that?
It's very simple. And
Well, the thing is, you get, sometimes you get 2 or 3 in a sentence. So when you're writing one, it's tough to put your attention on something else because you're trying to write that down. I'm trying to put the one word system. She's got a lot of
I
them.
was expecting
Don't see too many of the one word sentences. You see them, you hear them.
You wanted
That's
to
good.
hear.
Yes, I.
Because it takes time. It takes time to do this.
Sorry.
But the more you do it, the better you get. So when you hear somebody say a phrasal verb, you try to think to yourself, what one word could replace those 2 words and nothing else, change nothing else in the
It
sentence.
was nice to meet you.
When you do that, you become better than us because then you can survive us. Otherwise, it's hard to survive us because you could say any number of phrasal verbs and not hear what it is. which has a lot. It comes on, so here we go. Comes on. Every verb can be a phrasal verb.
Yeah, but I mean, they can be, how to say, they can be only in this conditions. I mean, one word, no, can.
Oh, you can make one-word verbs into phrasal verbs, sure. Yeah, you can. In the back of the Cambridge Phrasal Verb Plus book, they have about 457 singular verbs that they say can replace the 4,129 phrasal verbs. So 457 rather than 4,129. That's like 10 to 1. So yeah, so it's not just interesting, it's our blind spot. That's the whole thing. So we say them, we kind of know what's going on, but we don't know we're saying them. I show them to you, and we do this, and you start to get it. You start to, the more you get this, and the more you practice, try to think of, I hear it make money, but there's no second word there, so that's the correct opposite. Behind, was it? See here, to be behind, very good. To be behind, and then
It's to lag behind. To lag behind and to be behind. The same thing.
well, any verb
First, to
preposition.
lag behind something.
Oh, to lag behind.
To lag behind.
I guess to recess or to lose. So
Yeah,
if you lag behind, you're following.
Following up,
You're lagging behind, yeah. So you're following, but you're following further back. Yeah. So the idea is to try to think of a one-word sentence, because that's what I had to do for this person. Because she's talking to people around the world in 15 minutes, Australia, New Zealand, India. So if you're not used to listening to people talk to you and they go up and down like this, even though it's just plain English, but they put this other dimension into English, it drives you crazy. So she's talking to people in the US, UK, Canada, Scotland, and so she's only going to talk to them for 15 minutes. You can't understand somebody's, I call pet phrasal verbs, their top 20, 30 phrasal verbs in 15 minutes. And you can't see them. If you see us, she's just got up and walked out. She rose and left. But we show you what it is, but if you can't see us, you don't know what we're saying. Because it sounds like English, looks like English, but it's not connected to us. It's over the phone, unless you use like a voice phone, a video phone. So it's crazy, and but I started this in, but I got well in about, I got here 2006, so by 2008, I was good, but this person pushed me to be even better because she had to be able to understand anybody instantly. So you have to be able to understand anybody instantly. You have to do this. You have to recognize the phrasal verb, and then in your mind, because you can think faster than you can speak or write, you have to think of any one-word synonym. And I did a couple of them tonight, just as a demonstration to give you both sides. So this is the difference. I call it kind of like Matrix English. Did you see the movie? Anybody see the movie Keanu Reeves, Matrix? Matrix? Yes? Okay. How many? So in Matrix, they take a pill to see the real world. To stay or one to go into the world. So he takes the one, and this is kind of like the real messy English. But this is how we talk and how we think. And you got a lot of them, that's fantastic. So you got to try to think, just as a practice, when you hear us, try to think, what one-word synonym can work here? Put your thumb over the verb and say, okay, to talk to discuss. Take up a course, start, look for, search, looks like, seems. So if you can think of any synonym, you start to do that connection I showed you between informal and formal English, and that makes you better than us.
and to make money, we try to earn.
Well, see, make is it's just one word, make money, so noun, direct object.
Yeah, I got it, but it's possible to say to earn.
The synonym, it's one word synonym for one word verb, yeah, but that's kind of easy. The thing is, the second part, since this comes from German, did you take German? Did you take German language? Did you ever take it? Okay, well if you say walk out, I need to walk out in German, can you say that? I need to walk out, I will walk out. Can you say that? Okay, well in German, the second word in any phrasal verb is at the end of the sentence. I don't know what they do if they have two of them in the same sentence, maybe two last words. But the second word in any phrasal verb in German, which is where English gets most of this stuff, is always at the end of the sentence. they did that before they could write. So they had that rule, it's a great rule, but then after William the Conqueror beat the Saxons, who, as I said before, if you remember, Saxony, Germany, because they kind of came from that lineage of people and that language, it merged, and then it becomes like a trombone, and that second word can be anywhere after the verb and before the period. And the period is just like a pause as a completed thought. But 1,000 years ago, how many people in Britain or in Saxony or in France wrote? Not so many. Not so many. But they thought and they could say sentences. So the writing is just a reflection of that. And in German, they kept that rule, but in English, we lost that rule because the French said, "You will speak English the way we speak French, or I will chop off your head." So they did, but the French couldn't hear the phrasal verbs. So for them, it was English, but they didn't understand it. So they couldn't get mad at something they don't understand. But the local people still could talk that way, and they kept going.
This is not so hard to learn.
You want to learn 4,129 phrasal verbs in Cambridge? And any word. I ask you.
Often as possible.
But the thing is, everybody's got their top. If I ask you, and if I talk to you for like 30 minutes, I'll know what your top 10 phrasal verbs are. But the thing is, you don't have 10, 15 minutes or 30 minutes to talk to complete strangers. Let me just videotape it. So the thing is, you have to recognize. Your brain has to recognize the pattern. What's that? What part of speech?
Now,
Yes. What's the color?
dark blue.
No, what's the color part of speech? Yeah, what's that?
Fall down.
What's the part of speech?
Verb.
Okay. Then, what's this? Adverb. Slowly. This is a part of speech you have to recognize. Because if you ask me if I want a piece of pizza, I've eaten 2 pieces. I've eaten 2 full pieces. Ask me if I want to have another piece of pizza. Ask me, George, George, do you want another piece of pizza? Say it to me.
Do you want another piece of pizza?
No, I'm all pizzaed out.
No more pizza.
I'm all pizzaed out.
Pizza out.
Pizzaed out.
I got it. You just you made a word from now.
We can do that with any.
It's
We can do that with any verb.
yeah, but it's normal practice in the sense.
Are you ready for any verb that can be made a phrasal verb at a moment's notice that you're not ready for? Probably not. Maybe. I mean, if you're in the U.S., you hear it all around you. It's kind of our soup of our language, but a lot of people aren't. So how many people get to go to, New York or any place, or watch movies in English, or listen to songs on Relax FM, Monte Carlo FM, Same FM 104.7. Who listens to those songs? All those songs have phrasal verbs in them. So who listens to that and gets used to that? Not many people. They hear. I go to a Burger King and they play the same songs over and over again. The Russians have no idea what the songs are. They're simple songs, simple words. They have no idea what they are because they're not listening to. They're doing work. It's just background noise. So this is the difference. This is why this person, and she left. Actually, after the financial crash, her division, which was the industrial lubricants division, was closed because there was no finance, no money to move machines, machines don't work, machines don't move, don't need oil for machines, closed the department. So her department was closed in 2 months. Well, GM almost went out of business in 2 months. So she lost her job, but she's a top HR person, so she landed on Sochi. She got a job in Sochi. She always goes like from one big project to the next. So, but she's still not. I keep in contact with her. I don't even know if she's fully trained yet because we didn't get to do that, and she's always busy. So you have to do this. You have to do this practice to get really good at it. But when you're even half good at it, you can deal with us. You understand us better than we understand each other. That's a good trick. If you understand us better than we understand each other, because language is subjective, and who knows what phrasal verbs you're good at and don't know, or You know, who knows all 4,000? I have 6,016 because books don't agree. Even British books don't agree with other British books on phrasal verbs. Americans don't agree with Americans. So I'm gathering them. My main hobby is collecting phrasal verbs.
You have Australian
Boring.
Australian English and New Zealand.
Well, watch Crocodile Dundee or Mad Max Thunderdome 1, 2, or 3. Crocodile Dundee 1 or 2. And you'll be ready for Australia. Oh, I mate. Oh, let's have a go. Let's have a go at it. Have a go? What? So it's just a little bit of the sound, the phonetics, and their local phrase verbs. It's still English. That is low-income English from the Industrial Revolution of people stealing a loaf of bread, and the British saying, let's just send them to Australia to die. We don't have enough space in our jail, so let's just send them there. There's no. It's all desert. Actually, it's kind of more desert now with the fires, right? But let's just get rid of these poor people, and they sent some guards down. Probably the guards died more than the local people, because if you can live on the streets of Britain in the Industrial Revolution, it's pretty tough.
Hey,
You're pretty tough.
famous story.
Yeah. So it's not famous. The British don't like it. They don't want to admit that they tried to send people down to Australia to die. But Botany Bay was a very.
But there was a group of, I would say, 2-3 people who decided to
Escape.
escape to Australia and start something.
Oh, sure. This is
From the beginning.
Yeah, they could. Some people migrate. That's more like New Zealand. But most of the people that are in Australia are from people that were poor and that stole something, and that's just British said, let's just get that trash, that human trash, out of here. So the Australians just love to beat the British at anything they can. They just love to. And they have a unique sound. They're unique, but it's not really upper income, upper class British. Actually, the British have, as I was talking before, they have a language caste system. So within London itself, there are at least 12 different distinct dialects that they can tell your sort of social class. And if you don't sound smart, you don't get a good job. So you can be stupid and sound good and get a really good job compared to somebody who has say, Liverpool from the Beatles, the Liverpool sound, but is Einstein. So they would rather hire the person with the better sound, thinking that means intelligence, as opposed to the person who is intelligent but was brought up, raised in a low-income area. So actually one of our, if you've been following the Trump thing, one of the top specialists was a British person who went to the U.S. because she couldn't get a job, a decent job, even though she was really smart, because she was from a low-income area, and her sound was lower class, considered lower class British. But she got a PhD and then became an assistant to the ambassador in the U.S. of Ukraine. She said, I would never have had this job in Britain, which is really interesting to hear when she was giving talks to the House of Representatives over the impeachment of Trump. So she actually was like, I love that phrase, and I've got that. It's like, person, and I saw people in New York and LA who left London, who left England because they can't go any higher in their sound lets them. Because there are people at the top who say, if you don't sound good, you don't get any higher. So India has religious caste system, and the upper class British people have a language caste system. So I was kind of amazed. But then I actually got proof of it when I was working for Deutsche Bank. I was standing no further than this to two British people. And to them I was invisible because I was an American person teaching English. And they said to each other, I don't like the way that other guy sounds. They're talking about another British person. Because it had a British name like Lancaster or something like that. And so it's another British person. And the second guy says, well, why do you say that? Why do you say you can't trust him? The first guy says, I don't like the way he sounds. The way he sounds is a measure of how you are, how you work. I never heard that before, ever, anywhere, how you sound. If you're smart and you come from the hills of Kentucky or way back in Texas and have this really terrible dialect, they don't care. Can you make the person money? Can you do your job? That's what they care about. They don't care how you sound. So it was kind of amazing. I'm like right there, like I'm invisible because I'm a colonist. I'm from the colonies. I'm not even part of the Commonwealth, part of the Americas. It's just amazing. They could say that in front of me, but not even care. Not even care. How you sound.
I thought that people were
IQ means nothing. IQ means nothing. You can have it, but you're not going to get a good job. They'll say, how do you sound? You could be brilliant. You could be Einstein. You sound like the early Beatles from Liverpool. You ain't going nowhere. We don't have that. We don't think like that. It doesn't care what you sound like. It's how you are, how you're trained, what you can do. Can you make your boss money in doing something? Are you a good surgeon? Are you a good dentist? Are you a good architect? Do you manage a store well? That's what they care about. Would you care about how somebody sounds in the U.S. if you were a manager? Do you ever have anybody say how somebody sounds is a measure of their character, how they sound, their dialect? Have you ever heard that in the U.S.? I never did. We don't have that. Oh, maybe, I don't know. It's maybe not here, maybe a little bit, but it's dramatic. It's dramatic because it's just, I don't know why it is, but they just, in Britain, in the UK, if you don't sound like you're from a very smart school or a very wealthy area, we call that pigeonholing. They characterize your character by your dialect. Not what's up here, what's here. So they don't as much. You can be stupid, but if you sound like you saw My Fair Lady, see the movie My Fair Lady, where the guy says, I can make that flower girl, your flowers. I can make that girl into a princess. Because if she sounds like a princess, people will think she's a princess. That's exactly what it is. I thought it was kind of a comedy, but it's really sort of social commentary. It's a parody on the idea that the class system exists in England based on how you sound, not what you know. So.
Noticeable intuition to different dialects. So we have Russian language with different accents maybe. But if someone will have this strong accent, he's from a far south, well, people will treat it a little bit different.
Here, yeah.
But it's rare.
But if they know that you're well, if you have a PhD, is it? Why? Who teaches dialects in PhD for chemical engineering? Or physics? You have language classes in masters? In university?
Yes.
Oh, we don't have that. We don't have much of acting class.
People who speak with strong accent are extremely rare. So if you do go to the university, you will get rid of this accent because everybody speaks just Russian.
Well, the person will try to get rid of it. Yeah?
I think that will just...
Because my brother and sister are 2 and 3 years younger than I am. And I was born in St. Louis, so my sound patterns were formed in St. Louis. So I sound more like the Bushes, the 2 Bush presidents. And my brother and sister were 2 or 3 years younger. We moved to a little bit in Boston, but then Pennsylvania. So their sound is suburban Pennsylvania. So to them, who are only 2 and 3 years younger, I sound different, even though we're in the same family. And my relatives who are all around Boston sound dramatically different. So I try not to get that accent when I visited them. So if you've ever heard somebody from Boston, it's really kind of old English that survives within 100 kilometers of Boston. So I tried not to get that accent when I moved there when I was in 1st grade and 2nd grade. But my brother and sister, who were just 2 or 3 years younger, see you later, thank you very much. Yes, catch you later, thank you very much. I'll get the post out. Thanks.
Very good and interesting.
Hopefully it helps.
Speak better.
Well, it's just to understand that.
How often do you read?
I'm going to try to do this twice a month, and I get my speakers.
You are the most educated speakers I've ever seen there.
We have good speakers. We have good speakers here.
Maybe about you, there was very strange people. I mean native speakers.
Well, they have good speakers, so I would not say anything less about them. So see you again.
It was excellent.
Okay, great. So, yeah, it's my sister now thinks that I'm getting some sort of a British accent because I teach English published publication. So I think I don't sound British, right? I don't say cheers or anything like that. My sister, but she sees in my writing she says this is not American, and for some strange reason, and I don't see what's in there that's not American. I kind of, when I say something, I usually say my first name and then about, so that when I see this email, like I said, 5 words about headlines, when I see this email and it only shows that amount of my whole phrase, I can see what I wrote about like 6 months or a year from now. So she thinks maybe that's a British thing coming in, but I'm surprised that even now they still think that I sound a little different than, I guess the sound's a little flatter. So if you ever hear George Bush, when he talks to Texans, because that's more what he does. When he talks to people from other places, he kind of, like you said, he hides that accent. But when he's in the South, or when he's in Texas, or kind of that area of the Midwest, below St. Louis, and he tries to sound, he brings that accent back out because it's familiar to the people and makes them feel comfortable. So, yeah. Well, yes and no. We've had TV since the 50s, so it's still around. People hear what's local to them. People do move, but pretty much in Russia before Perestroika, the percentage of people moving was close to 0. So your grandmother's probably here in town, right? So close by. Okay, but if most people who are here can ask their grandparents about to help them because they're local. All my relatives were from the Boston area. My father started working in St. Louis. We went to Massachusetts. We went to the Boston area for like a year and a half. Then to Pennsylvania for 20 years. So I didn't see my relatives around Boston much. We saw them like one weekend, the 3rd Saturday in July for our family reunion. So we got to see them then, and there's no internet. So it's kind of writing letters. It's not really so interesting to be. Here at internet, I probably send email out every day. So I do that. Still haven't sent a physical letter to anybody. But the email, I'm in better contact with people in the U.S. or worldwide, to people I know, than I was before the internet with just writing letters. So I have like whole directories just for certain people or certain classes, like college people, high school people, whatever. So it's really good. Okay, yeah, please get involved. She got a lot, but not so many one-word synonyms. Goes on. Put it on. So here you got the pronoun put on. So you got put it on the top. On, come by, looks like. Look for it. Look for. So this could be, sometimes you get the phrasal verb, and it could be either phrasal verb directed object or verb and prepositional phrase. So it's like saying 3 plus 3 equals 4 plus 2, and you can feel the difference grammatically. It happens about like once every, my guess is like once every 20 or 30 times, but it's the same meaning. Otherwise, we would have a problem. So here, if I looked at it in context, look for, and the way you can tell the difference is which sounds like it has more meaning. Look for it or look for it. So it depends on the sentence. I'm just using this because this might go both ways. So you say it both ways. Versus, it doesn't matter which way. The verb and then the phrase, or this as the verb and this is the direct object. So it can go one of 2 ways. Not so frequently, and nobody writes about that because nobody really cares. Nobody really cares. 1 billion Indians learn British English, and same problem. I've asked people from Britain, I've asked teachers from Britain, from India, do you teach phrasal verbs? No. It's the last page in the Murphy book. The last page in the Murphy book. You know the Murphy book, right? Everybody knows the Murphy graph. Murphy book it's a Cambridge book, I think Cambridge, written by this guy Ralph Murphy or something like that. Ronald Murphy? R. Murphy. And the last page is something we use up to 82% of the time.
When I came an hour later, I didn't know what I was weird that I was trying to
As I told the gentleman before, in the back of the Cambridge Phrasal Verb Plus, it's a great book. It's a good reference book. I think it's as valuable as a thesaurus after the dictionary. Because if you don't know the verb, you have no idea what the sentence is, actually the sentence. So you can have 5, 10, 15, 20 different phrasal verbs for a verb. Which one to use? But the other way around, in the back of the book, which is really not so smart for them, they give you 457 verbs that they tell you matches that can replace the 4,129 phrasal verbs. So which, if you have to learn something, which do you want to learn? The 457, even those 457, you look at them, there are synonyms within themselves. So I think maybe 200. You look at it, you can just look at the book and buy it, or like take some pictures of the back pages, and you can tell a lot of the phrases. How many ways can you say out, or in, or have? So, because the last part is a preposition or particle. And a lot of ways. So like 19 prepositions. So a lot of them are synonyms to each other. So if you do an Excel spreadsheet and do those 457, I think I haven't done it yet, but I want to, you could probably reduce that 457 to under 200. That's a lot better than listening to or looking at 4,129. They don't even tell you how many phrasal verbs are in their own book. I listed them on a 40-hour trip from Moscow to the Black Sea on a summer program to teach English. I had 40 hours, 3 eggs, and 2 tetrons. And I didn't sleep. I was actually, I always wanted to write them down. I wrote the first 1,000, but I didn't know how many other ones there were, so I did the other 3,129. And I didn't sleep at all the 40 hours. I was kind of happy to finally have time to write down, to record, to analyze, to look at, to save those other ones. And it's worth doing.
But you made an example of creating the phrasal verb.
Oh yeah, any verb, in or out. You're driving, the gas runs out, you have to fill up the tank, still percentage. So ask me, I said, ask me, I've had 2 pizzas, I've had 2 full pizzas. Ask me if I want to have another piece of pizza. I'm pizzaed out. I have to stop this spacito. I have enough pizza. I can't have another piece. I'm up here. So you can make any verb a phrasal verb. It doesn't help you. But if you know you can do that, then you can kind of... Print them down to record them, to study them. It's useless to try to memorize them. You have to have some techniques, some strategy. This is a strategy. There might be other strategies. This strategy works pretty well. Because once she can see them. She saw as many as I did, but she doesn't have the one-word synonym. Because it takes time. And she's seen my presentation at least 10 times in the past 5 years. At least 10 times. But she's not, I said, just start thinking of it. When you start thinking about it, because if you look at a dictionary, there are only 19 prepositions. And when you see a verb and a preposition, or any 2 prepositions, or any preposition and a particle in a row, the first one has to be part of the verb. So right away you know you've got a phrasal verb. And usually phrasal verbs use different imagery than the sentence. So that's another hint. And if you see a preposition or particle at the end of the sentence, again it must be part of the verb, because they even tell us in class, prepositions cannot live by themselves. At the end of the sentence, there's no noun after. So it must be part of the verb, wherever that verb is in front of it. So you've got kind of 3 things, 2 basic things. Preposition or particle together, the first one isn't in any combination, preposition, particle, preposition, particle, preposition, particle. Or preposition or particle at the end of the sentence. So you kind of have to wait for the sentence to finish to kind of get the idea and think, okay, can those two words, is that a verb with a direct object, or is it a verb with a phrase? Which way makes more sense? And one way will make more sense. Or, like about 1 out of 20, maybe 1 out of 30 times, they make equal sense. That's why I said it could be 3 plus 3 equals 4 plus 2. And you can feel grammatically the difference. It's really strange. But it works both ways. So it's really, thank goodness. Thank you very much, whoever was the language goddess.
And what does it mean, I work on?
To work on, to study, to do,
And take up
to start. Take up a course, take up a new course. See, I was like, I'm not even, it would help to look at it, but I don't have to look at it. She doesn't have to look at it. She knows this kind of thing. I've said it to her. And as I said in the beginning, if you read something, you kind of actually, I just discovered in a TED Talk that if you read something, 40% of it is gone before 24 hours. So if you write it or listen to it, you forget less. If you do the thing, actually, if you write it, it's the best thing. If you read it, you forget quickly. If you listen to it, you don't less. If you listen to it repeatedly, it fills in the gap. It builds. Because nobody remembers more, as we're told as teachers in Los Angeles, nobody remembers more of anything than 75% on a good day. And you wake up, you're tired, you're hungry. Before lunch, you're tired, you're hungry, not tired. After lunch, you have too many carbs. So before you leave, you're tired and hungry again. So you're never at 70. I tell my kids, in school, I teach preschool now, but when I was teaching 8th grade algebra, I said, I don't expect more than on a good day, 50%. I expect closer to 25% understanding. No, it's not sad, because each time I have a chart, I can send you my chart, each time you repeat something, if you say, for example, if you know something half, and you read it again, you get half of the other half, that's 75%. Do it again, half of the remaining 25%, that's 12%. Now you're up to 93% just by doing something 3 times, by listening to a class 3 times. So and the numbers are each time when you go from 3/4 to 1/2 to 1/3 to 1/4, you have to review one more time to get close to 75%.
And if you read out loud,
Well, you're using more things. You're thinking, you're using vocal cords, you're checking yourself with hearing. So yeah, you can make a chart of your 5 senses, and the more things you do, the more you're going to remember. That's why writing, you're thinking your coordination, you're thinking about words, you're writing, so a lot of different focus on different things. You're listening, you're looking, if you're listening to something, you're checking. So the more of your senses you can use in remembering and writing or studying something, the more you remember. Yeah.
now people, a lot of people
Well, ADD is something else. ADD is not focus. ADD is not being focused. Attention deficit disorder. Maybe you're talking about Alzheimer's or something. That's a different thing. Attention deficit is, and I see that with some of the kids in school and in forum and even in kindergarten, they just can't keep focused on anything for any length of time. Yeah, it's just, that person could be a dancer, that could be too. That person could be a dancer, that's a possibility. I saw that at TED Talk. But if a person is not a dancer and they don't need movement to communicate, a certain percentage of people, I don't know what the percentage is, it's attention deficit disorder. And you don't really necessarily grow out of it, you can kind of cope with it. But it's not something that you can necessarily grow out of it because it's just part of who you are and you have to deal with it, find mechanisms to use it, compensate. This is good. She did really good. but I don't see the one-word synonyms. So she got that, and she got the direct object. So take out, take to, talk about, talking out, put your head in. So here, put, and then here's your direct object, and then in. So you have to wait for that. So she got that. Behind, to be behind, there we go. Make money, there's something missing there. But she got love. Put it on, there's your direct object, a pronoun, because it was referenced. Usually, if you have something in the middle, most of the time it's a pronoun because you've referenced it before. We tend to put the pronoun in the middle if we can. So pronouns can go one of three ways. It can go after the phrasal verb, it can go in front of it, or it can go both ways. So it's kind of like 2.5 ways to do that. And so when it comes on, very good, back off. Used to, must, here's right here, must, used to, must work. So it's actually a phrasal verb inside of a phrasal verb. Must work. Huh? To retreat. So it says back off. You can see there's a truck coming and you're walking by, so it says back off. So it's, yeah, go in reverse. Go in reverse. So she got to get out, so leave, come in, enter, used to, occasionally make, talking to. Yeah, because it was said, yeah. So she got like as much, as probably more than I did, but I was going for the one-word synonym too. So as I'm writing the one-word synonym, I can't really focus on what's being said because I'm trying to get the one-word synonym. So most of my attention is making that one-word synonym because in a sentence you can have two, sometimes three, but usually you don't see too many times there's three phrase words in a sentence, but you can easily have two. I walked up on her. I walked up while they were walking out. So easily you can have two of them in a sentence. And so as you're trying to think of one, the other one's coming, but you can't hear because you're focusing on the one-word synonym for that. So, but when if you're not writing, your mind can work much faster than hand-eye coordination. Yeah. So this is how we're not like this. We say this, but we don't know we're saying it. That's the problem. So you have to watch, you have to listen to us. It's really kind of knowing that the prepositions are particles, and after the verb, you say to yourself, which way makes more sense? One way will make more sense. Except those few times that it's equal. So when you see that, I make a list of it. And I have another trick, I don't have it now. If you saw Dmitry Petrov, Dmitry Petrov, he had a language special. And he put some of them around a point in space. And I did the top, if you look in the Cambridge book, they show the top 20 phrasal verbs, top 20 prepositions and particles, and they're all opposites of each other. So you don't have to learn 20, you don't have to learn 10. It's in the phrasal verb plus book, the Cambridge phrasal verb plus book. So so come in, come out, go up, go down, so rise, lower. So it's really good to know that. And you just say to yourself, which way makes more sense? So this is a first, I'm sorry I couldn't have all the sounds to make it a really good first thing. Oh, I gotta get out of here. I was expecting that. So great, so thank you. I'm gonna give you a card. And that way you can keep in touch. And I'm gonna try to do this. When I do this, you should put an advertisement. Did you get the notice? Did you get the email notice or your first time here? Okay, so make sure you put your email to you later. And when I do this again, I'll figure out, I get the bugs out. I'll kill the bugs about the sound because my Bluetooth was not working so well today. 2 days ago it was working fine. Something happened. So I'll get it fixed. And then when the next time I do it, I want to try to do it twice a week, twice a month, at least once a month, but hopefully twice a month. And then the same thing, have somebody come up to try to do this. And she got better by doing this. She had to focus her attention on listening to the sentence. She couldn't see it, so she only had sound. So usually if you see us, it's really easy to do it, but if you don't have that, you have to like really think about this. So she was really good. She's seen me do this like a dozen times. So it's kind of like she's been taught, but it's passive rather than being active. Sometimes I had people up here, and I would let one person pick a verb and then another person pick a article or preposition, and we would see how many definitions we can make out of it. And so that was kind of interesting too. But so I did this because this is kind of the, in a way, toughest, but if you can do this, which you can do, I didn't get as many as she got more than I did, but I was trying to show you that you can do this. Come in, enter, moderating force, showing, am off, leaving, come by, arrive, talking back, taking back, returning, looking for, search, talking about, discuss, put inside, insert. So these one-word symbols do actually work for the two words. So you can do this in your mind almost instantly without much practice, without much effort. I had a class, the first time it took 5 months, once a week on Saturdays. Then with 2 classes a week, 2 academics, it took 3 to 5 months. Then with 3 academics twice a week, with one client, it took 5 weeks. A couple of years ago in the summer class, 9 days, 2 academic hours. 9 days, 2 physical hours. 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. 9 days for kids. A 14-year-old boy. The girls were better in English, but somehow he got it. So he started to see phrasal verbs in his summer play that he was reading every day. He was reading this every day, practicing. And only on the 9th day did he realize, oh, that means this. 9 days, 2 physical hours, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. So 9 days. I actually want to try to see if I can get a weekend class, Saturday and Sunday. 2 academic hours in the morning, 2 academic hours in the afternoon, 2 days. So that'd be 4 times 2, or maybe 3 academic hours, 2 physical hours by English first, 40-minute times. 2 hours, 15 minutes. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. 6 academic hours twice a day, twice for the weekend. That's 12 academic hours. I think I can get somebody to start to do this by Sunday afternoon. So they have a class, we go out to an excursion, we come back, we have another class, we play this game. And we show a movie, we show an English movie to relax the people, and I think I can do that. So I have reservations for a 4-star hotel not so far away from Moscow to try to find at least 5 people who want to do this and not have to wait. I mean, 9 days in a row for 2 academic. It's not memory. It's a talent. It's a skill. But it can be done quickly. I got it down to 9 days. 9 days in the summer because these poor kids couldn't go anywhere. So I had 9 days of guinea pigs to do this with. And one boy expected the girls because they had better English, and the boy started to recognize phrasal verbs in his play that he was reading every day to him, that by the 9th day, by the first 8 days, it just meant nothing to him. It was just words. It was just letters and sounds. The 9th day, he said, oh, this means this. Oh, pretty good. Because usually boys are not as good with languages until they get out of high school. Then we start to realize, oh, this is really important. So myself included, I was like a B+ student. I was not an A student. I was A in science and math, but not English is okay. Because guys don't talk so much.
And could you tell me, after intermediate, what is this A1?